Despite its early identity crisis, Duet Night Abyss is still alive. And honestly, I think it's doing pretty well for what it's worth. Since launch, there's been a ton of updates, and all of these updates have not only lended themselves to quality of life improvements, but also some gameplay changes. And in addition to in-game updates, the devs have said multiple times throughout their own dev blogs and other posts that they are actively trying to make the gameplay experience significantly better, and it's actually something that I'm going to cover in this video towards the end. But first, I do want to address the actual updates that they've already made. Now, the core gameplay loop of Duet Night Abyss remains mostly the same. If you weren't a fan of Warframe or general Muso horde slaying style gameplay to begin with, you probably aren't going to change your mind on Duet Night Abyss, because at the end of the day, that is just the style of game that it is. Duet Night Abyss characters still have 2 buttons for their general gameplay, and a lot of the missions are about going in, destroying 100 guys, and leaving with a bunch of loot. But if you are a fan of this style of game, then you know it's not about how complex the combat is. It's about how powerful you feel at the end of the day doing all of these missions, and how accomplished you feel after completing all of these tasks that lead to you gaining that power. And it's for that reason that I don't think the gameplay in particular was the problem that a lot of players had with Duet Night Abyss. That's not to say the gameplay is perfect, it can certainly be improved upon a lot. But the main issue with the game that a lot of players had was that there wasn't any meaningful content to actually use your high-powered characters in. And for an MMO-like game, there didn't seem to be a lot of social features that would get players excited about playing with other people or showing off their characters and cosmetics. And it is for that reason that I can confidently say that the Duet Night Abyss team has been trying really hard to make meaningful updates to the game, and they've been doing a great job. Now, as with all sponsored content, I am required to let you guys know that this is a sponsored video, and you guys are more than welcome to take everything that I say in this video with a grain of salt. But I would be lying to you guys if I said that I wasn't planning on making some kind of Duet Night Abyss update video. And the reason for that is because I've continuously played this game on and off since its launch. And when I say on and off, sometimes I'll play 3 days in a row, some days I'll play 2 weeks in a row, some days I'll play 30 to 60 days apart from each other. The thing is with Duet Night Abyss, it just doesn't matter. It's not like a gacha game where if you stop playing it for a week, you miss out on permanent progression forever, and it sets you permanently behind. There's no stamina or power tied to a premium currency in Duet Night Abyss. It ultimately is a game that respects your time by allowing you to use it how you would prefer to use it, and doesn't force you to log into the game every single day in order to clear all of the endgame content. Now, I for one am an enjoyer of this style of game. I really liked Warframe, and for players who do like this style of game, they've created not only more maps and challenges for players in recent times, but also new ways to grind gear and improve characters, leading to more long-term progression for power. A great example of this is the new Calamity weapons. Now, Calamity weapons were something that they actually added in a previous patch, but conceptually they're still new to the game and probably new to a lot of people watching this video. Calamity weapons are a new type of weapon that has its own individual skill tree attached to it, and you progress the weapon skill tree step by step. Now, half of this tree will basically be free upon completing the quests for that specific weapon, but the rest of the stats on the tree are going to require you to do some different kinds of grinds. The cool thing with the Calamity weapons is that they not only increase the power of your characters significantly, but they also made weapon proficiency actually useful, because characters have had weapon proficiency in their kit from the start of the game, but it's never really mattered enough to make a big difference on which weapons you actually run. Calamity weapons cannot be equipped to a character that you have in Duet Night Abyss unless they are proficient with that kind of weapon. The Calamity weapons also have their own unique effects that will increase your damage significantly, and a lot of Calamity progression items can be dropped by specific types of enemies throughout missions. It gives you a reason to target specific enemies in the different missions that you run. In the recent patch, they made adjustments to Calamity weapons based on player feedback, making it easier to get Calamity weapon parts from Immersive Theater, and they also reallocated resources from Abyssal Compasses, which were items added in around the time of Calamity weapons that are used to open up higher tier commissions for more item drops. The Calamity weapon grind can be done alone or with your friends, but one thing that I really like that Duet Night Abyss has done recently is putting more of an emphasis on social systems and playing with other players. As mentioned before, you can still solo things, but the Calamity grind feels way better with friends, and there's also even a new event game mode that utilizes multiple players with insane rewards. This event is way more enjoyable with friends, and to help with that, Duet Night Abyss has introduced a guild system in the previous patches. Guilds can be boiled down to being a grouping and chatting tool, but they also have a weekly shop for your contribution to the guild. The guild shop can give you progression items, including ones for Calamity weapons, and also Foxines, which can be used for other items like dyes, even if you're a free-to-play player. Guilds are still a work in progress with more features on the way in the future, but as of right now, they serve as a way for players to lean into the MMO-like aspects of the game and socialize with all sorts of different people. I know that some people don't like playing games with others online, but personally, it's something that I'm really excited for. But now that you know guilds exist, going back to the game mode bit, the new Ensemble Act event is one that allows you to farm an absurd amount of resources by contributing to a group boss HP pool. You get 3 weekly attempts to do as much damage as you can to contribute to the boss kills, and by contributing, you can get a ridiculous amount of boxes of demon wedges, or any other major progression resource. And when I say tons of boxes, I mean literally an absurd amount. If you use a gold tier commission manual, you can get up to 1,500 boxes of demon wedges. Now, to be completely honest, most people aren't going to be able to do that, and most people will go for the lower tiers, but even then, the boxes, the amount that you get for these progression resources across the board are ridiculous. Wedges are a % chance to get, with level up resources being the default, purple wedges being a little bit less common, and gold blueprints being rare. So you can use all of them to quickly forge higher tier demon wedges like the ones that combine a ton, or even fuse the copies for more overall power. A strong guild will make this event massive for returners, but make sure you don't overestimate yourself, because doing the level 110 bosses is a ridiculously high DPS check, even for players who have maxed characters. If you want to play it safe, I would definitely lean towards the level 90 or below ones, but as always, you do you. Duet Night Abyss has also improved other social features, and the world overall feels a lot more alive with players than it did before. One other big feature of this style of game is cosmetically outfitting your characters to make them unique. With their adjustments to the gacha that they made a long time ago, there's no longer any sort of 50-50 for character skins, as you either get the skin, get the currency for the skin, or get double the currency for the skin. So even free-to-play players are able to get plenty of cosmetics, and a trade system would help that even more. So hopefully that's something that they're working on. A lot of players, including myself, would love to be able to trade cosmetics because they've added so many great ones. I mean, this is default Berenica, and this is Berenica with drip. So, I mean, I think it's pretty important. Additionally, I've noticed over the past few patches, Duet Night Abyss has had multiple events that can grant free-to-play players different colored dyes to help them customize characters even more without spending. And there's also a lot more skins in the game now, including this really cute summer skin. Overall, one of the many complaints that I had about Duet Night Abyss was that it costs consumable dye items to be able to change the color of your outfits. Now, I don't think this is a problem if you're able to get them as a free-to-play player, but at the launch of the game, it was pretty much just exclusively paid players who are getting access to these. So the fact that they've been adding a lot of events in to allow free-to-play players to stockpile their dyes is pretty dang good in my opinion. A better solution in my opinion would be making default colors free and then just selling separate color palettes, much like how Warframe does, but I do think that giving out dyes to free-to-play players is a good step in the right direction. There's also more bosses than there were at launch, and they added a new treasure hunt game mode. I'm gonna be honest, I haven't actually played it. You have to get through the entire story for it and then do something else to unlock it, but as I'm recording this on a beta server, I don't actually have access to it yet, so. But speaking of other game modes, the endgame content, Immersive Theater, has also been adjusted, so there's no longer an elemental restriction that is put onto you. You actually get to choose what element you would like to run in the new Immersive Theater, which means that you can just choose your favorite characters to clear it with, assuming that they're well built enough to do the damage. I think this is mostly a result of the dev team seeing that people are just clearing Immersive Theater with whatever the new character is, and it doesn't really matter if they limit it, it just kind of makes it annoying. So I'm glad that the elemental thing was addressed, and it's nice that you can take your favorite characters into Immersive Theater now. At least the higher up floors. I'm not 100% sure that they added this to the lower floors. Now, to someone like me, all of these updates don't necessarily signal that the game is like fixed and everything is good yet. I think there's still a lot of improvements that should be made to the game, but I definitely don't think that any of these updates were bad either. I think they've added a lot more to do in Duet Night Abyss, which is exactly what a lot of people were actually looking for. But with that said, the Duet Night Abyss team actually has been cooking a lot. With their 10th update bulletin, they actually mentioned a lot of optimizations they want to make to the game, and there's so many that I don't even think I can include all of them in this video, but there's some really important ones that stuck out to me. First off, the development team has said that they want to focus on making combat and non-combat smoother and more enjoyable. They also want to make progression a little bit simpler and give more characters and weapons opportunities to shine. They specifically acknowledged that they don't feel that the gameplay of the game is where they want it to be and up to par with a lot of its competitors, which I think is a really important thing to acknowledge. Actions speak louder than words, but they did specifically mention some changes that they're going to make that I think are really important to note. One of them is that for defense missions, you will spawn underneath the defense node now. You don't have to start the thing, run all the way to the defense node, and then start the mission. Small quality of life change, but it actually makes a pretty big difference, especially because farming for those Luno coins is really annoying. Since they're also putting an emphasis on co-op content, they mentioned that they're going to be adding a co-op lobby to make grouping easier. Another one that a lot of people, including myself, have been asking for is adding an aimed mode so you don't just shoot with right click. So for PC, there's going to be separate aim and shoot buttons that you can choose to use if you don't like the automatic shooting thing that happens whenever you right click. But one of the biggest changes that they're going going to be making is increasing the speed of their content cycle, but slowing down the amount of story and character releases. So typically, Duet Night Abyss's patch cycle was about 8 weeks. Now they're going to be going 6 weeks, but you're only going to be seeing 1 new character release per patch and 1 story update per 3 patches. And the reason is because they want to focus on optimizing the gameplay and making it feel just good to play overall. This sort of transparency is very important from the get-go, and I'm glad that they're providing it. But in addition to the transparency, I think the weight and gravity of the updates and the acknowledgements that they're making really goes to show that this dev team does care about their game and wants it to be the best it can be. The fact that they're going to take time away from developing story and characters to make sure that the gameplay experience is smoother, more optimized, and more enjoyable for players is a great thing, which is why I personally believe that the developers really are trying. Now, for the very sponsored part of this video, for those who are looking to start playing now or at any point in the future, 3 of the best characters in the entire game, including 2 of the best universally good supports, are available in the commission shop. So for them, you don't need to rely on weekly bosses anymore, and it's never been easier to pick them up. These are Fushu, who gives you basically infinite sanity, Fina, who makes you deal all types of elemental weapon damage and increases your weapon damage massively, and Psyche, who is an amazing and fun Anemo DPS character. Duet Night Abyss also just released Ada, the newest Hydro character dealing in summons, and her premium outfit is absolutely stunning. But I think this is more or less the last we'll see of Duet Night Abyss being super focused on character launches for a while, because the dev team is going to be really focused on improving the gameplay experience going forward, so much that they're willing to change the frequency of patch cycles and story and character releases to accommodate for that. Even if nothing else, they are doing their best to make sure that the experience for players is enjoyable, and that is one of the greenest flags a developer could ever have. So I personally am rooting for Duet Night Abyss, and I'm very optimistic about the future it holds, because there are many games that have released in a not ideal state, but given a year or two, if the developers were very serious about improving the game and getting it to the place that they envisioned it to be, those games have turned out amazing. But given all these updates and all this news, let me know what you guys think about Duet Night Abyss. Leave a comment down below, and feel free to join my guild if you want to play with myself and others. Until next time, everyone.